Alright, you saw the title. Let's get into it. Another 5 rare Astra Militarum regiments. Let's go. First out is the Nordian Berserkers. This one is from the old 3rd edition Imperial Guard Codex, so not a lot in terms of lore. But when I found my Radukar in my bits box, I knew I had to go for it. After removing Radukar's head, I also got rid of the little dagger on his belt. With the body all built, I grabbed another old Marauder head. Seriously, I'm running dangerously low on these by now. I clipped and dremeled away the little easy to build knob. And cut away the ball joint on the head. Since the connection wasn't perfectly flush, I had to use some sprue glue to get a better bond. To get this AOS model into the 41st century, I want to replace the rusty saber with a bolt pistol. I of course need to remove the hand from the gun and the sword from the other. With both parts scraped flush, I join them together. One thing I noticed is Radukar is bare-chested and wearing a cloak, but he's got sleeves. Like, is he wearing a cloak with sleeves on it? To fix this, I'll just give him a sleeveless arm. The cuff on the original arm instead becomes a leather bracelet. With all that glued together, the arm is attached, again with a generous helping of sprue glue. The OG model just kinda stands there with his left arm resting on nothing. It was just begging for a power sword. So I grabbed this old Space Wolf one and removed the hand and hilt, trying to recreate this sort of gladius style guard. To recreate the hilt of the sword, I just cut a length of it from a Jackal Shane axe. And after gluing it to the guard and adjusting its length, I could glue it to the hand. I also decided I wanted to give him a Viking-style round shield slung on his shoulder. Of course, the K symbol had to go in favor of a wolf skull, freed from this old Space Wolf's power fist. With the skull glued to the shield, I glued the shield to the pelt. I decided that the sword plunged into the snow wasn't badass enough, so I wanted to have it planted in the skull of a mutant. To make this possible, I had to clip away the sword tip and then carve a rounded shape into it. This allows me to glue the severed head, making it look like it's buried in it, and while still uncured, I used a base to make sure the head was flat against it. Now that this guy is all painted up, it's time for some snow. I want to see if I can improve the snow base from the previous video. Like before, I used PVA glue, white ink, and army painted battlefield snow. The tweak this time is I'm using a mortar and pestle to grind the snow texture finer. You want to aim for something that looks like salt. And you want the mix to be a thick and wet paste. When applying, slap down large blobs, not a thin layer. At this point it looks fine, but I want to apply a thin coat of Games Workshop Frost Hard Contrast paint to add a shade to the snow. I also mix ball red and wildwood to simulate blood from the head blending with the snow. Next I apply another layer of the snow mix, this time a little more PVA glue than snow and a tad less white ink. This makes it more transparent and some of the blue will shine through, giving the snow some depth. Before the snow dried, I sprinkle on some of that ground down AP snow, really gives it that fresh fallen powdery snow look. The blood got kind of lost, but when redoing it I thinned out the mix, thinking it looked more sunk into the snow, becoming like a horrible blood snow cone. What do you think? Does this snow look better than the one I did for the Etruscan Snowhound? This guy is definitely my favorite in the bunch, both the kitbash and the painting. I even painted some NMM because I was vibing with the model. Next is the Noctan Strike Forces, and I almost passed these guys up because of the goofy artwork, but upon reading the lore I realized they are way cooler. One thing I wanted to keep from the art was the poofy pants, and using Tau legs was perfect, but I had to replace the hooves. Tau are kinda short kings, so I used the legs from the Cities of Sigmar steel helm, making sure to keep those knees. Again, I'm using sprue glue on a less than perfect fit. For the torso, I want to combine a Genesteel Occult one with a Imperial Guard torso. From the Genesteel Occult one, I wanted to keep the shoulders, and after clipping away the worst of it, I Dremel away the rest. And finished by scraping it clean with a scalpel. With all that done, I next clipped away the collar of the imp torso, as well as removed the Imperialis by first making a lot of shallow cuts, then scraping with the knife, and lastly sanding it flat. Once I made sure both bits fit together, I glued them together. The Noctans are proficient in stealth, so by giving this guy a bomb, we can imagine he's a saboteur. To lean further into the stealth theme, I wanted to give him a silencer, something I've done in other videos. You cut a length of plastic rod and make sure it's not too wobbly. For this one I had to make a cut at an angle to accommodate the angle of the forward grip. Once the barrel is drilled, I can glue the silencer to the gun and the arm to the body. The Ruststalker heads are perfect for that stealth operative vibe, but to make it fit I had to get rid of the elephant trunk and replace it with an air filter from a jackal head. The Ruststalker head is missing a neck, so I had to use some green stuff to get the head in place. To paint this guy in a night scene, I first airbrushed him with a Sentinel by mixing Vallejo Black and a bit of AK Imperial Blue and Vallejo Royal Purple, brightening it up with Vallejo Blue Grey. Then with the brush, I'm blocking in the darkest of the shadows with slightly thinned Games Workshop Black Templar. This is applied all over the back of the model. The light in the front is from the moonlight, which is tinting everything this blue-gray. Next I use Vallejo Black, and this is a cool trick. The only reason Vallejo Black appears lighter than Black Templar is because one is matte and the other is satin. Light bounces off them differently, so one appears darker than the other. This black, which is still a shadow in the front, becomes a mid-tone in the back. Next I mix in the Imperial Blue and Royal Purple. This then becomes the mid-tone in the front and a highlight in the back. Adding blue-gray to the mix makes a highlight for the front. This jump is a little stark, but by glazing over and around the highlight, the transition is softened. I finished the paint job by painting a few spots in a dark violet to simulate something red at night. I also did a bunch of red OSL on lenses and displays. Before the next kit patch, just a short intermission. We have the channel's first sponsor, Lexby Games, one of my local game stores that sells everything Warhammer. If you use the code GSC5, you get 5% off your order, and that's on top of prices already lower than Games Workshop prices. Also, if you live in and around the Gothenburg area, Lexby Games has tons of beautiful gaming tables where you can play your next game. Follow the link below in the description. Let's get back to the video. For the 3rd regiment, it's the Miasman Red Cows. And I'm using this Imperial Agent's body, but I only want the lower body with the belt and the hood. So I clip the torso away. Keeping the belt, I need to clip the belt away from the imp torso. Once that is scraped flush, I can attach it to the lower body. Removing the hood, I first clip away what I can and cut away the rest with my scalpel. Then to make it flush with the torso and backpack, I Dremel away the excess and then glue it in place. For the head, I found this Sisters of Battle head with a gas mask, which I thought was fairly close to the artwork. Others have made their versions of the Red Cows, so having the hood down I thought was a bit different. And to mimic the artwork further, I gave her an at ease pose with a last gun pointing up and a chainsword pointing down. My tip when it comes to painting red is to start dark. This means as you highlight, you won't have to highlight it pink or orange. I reinforce the shadows that I initially airbrushed with burnt red, which I then mix 50-50 with gory red to serve as my mid-tone. Then we can go pure gory red, focusing on the edges and cover more of the upper parts of the folds. We want it to be brighter higher up and darker lower down. Then as a last highlight, I mix gory red and scarlet blood 50-50 and apply it towards the very top of the folds. You could even highlight further with just pure scarlet blood and still stay inside a pure red tone. This way of painting red works because you start dark and then increase both in value and in saturation on the red. Next is the Savage Armageddon Ork Hunters, a regiment on Armageddon that surprisingly specializes in hunting orcs. They don't mind using orc weapons, and some say they are even under the effects of war energy. So I had to give this guardsman a shooter. And since it's so big for a human, he has to fire it like it's a heavy weapon. In order for him to hold it, I clipped away a trigger from an ash-waste heavy weapon and a grip from a large jackal chainsword. To make sure everything lines up, a great tip is to use blue tack on all the moving parts except for the one you're gluing right now, and keep doing that until all the parts are glued in. You try to glue it all at once and it's sure to be a mess, and not gluing it while everything is attached, it's probably not gonna fit right at the end. My sprue glue is really thick, I need to mix some more. But while I was working on this project, you couldn't get Tamiya glue anywhere because of some new EU demands on the wording of the label. I'm grabbing a large backpack with an ammo canister to cover up the huge gap in the back of the jackal torso. I'm using a head left over from my Ratskins video. The head of the class of Karnak leader, he probably has a name. After clipping away the ring around his neck and trimming the neck, I glued the head on. He ended up with a rather short neck, but I feel like this is fitting with the whole turning slowly into an orc vibe these guys got. I also wanted to add this scavenged orky shoulder armor, but it's too big, so first I have to cut it to make it more narrow. To recreate the roughly cut metal edge, just cut into the side at an angle and then straight down to cut a wedge. Repeating this replicates the shape of the other sides. I also use my letter needle to drill holes for missing screws and bolts. The Armageddon Ork Hunters fight in the jungles of Armageddon, trying to rid the place of the orcs that keep popping up after the second war of Armageddon. So naturally I wanted to create a sort of jungle base. I first added some moss, and I've had people ask me before where these tufts are from, and they're from AK and they're simply called moss tufts. I just glue them down in patches with some PVA glue. Then I break out these laser cut ferns, and after bending the stems you can curl up the leaves. Then you just dip the stem in superglue and stick it down. This guy was really fun to make. It's essentially like an orc boy was turned into a real boy. And really trying to get the pose right and show the weight of the shooter really worked out. The least amount of converting was done on the Mordant acid dog, but I really wanted to give him some sleeveless arms and found that the shotgun arm from the Imperial Agents and the wrench arm from the Acadian upgrade sprue married together without any issue at all. One of those moments when the kitbash gods smile upon you. For a little attitude, I give the guy a head with a cigar in his mouth. The Mordant acid dogs have an unnerving culture of collecting tokens and mementos of battle, like the bones of their enemies. To show this, I made a necklace from flora wire. Once it had a shape that suited the running pose, I could glue on femurs and teeth. To paint the camouflage, I used a series of different shades of grey. One issue with camo and miniature painting lies in the very purpose of camo. Camo breaks up a shape and blends it into its environment. That's its purpose. The human eye is unable to read the shape and therefore not see it. This is of course a problem when painting minis, as we want to make sure these tiny things are readable at an arm's length, on the tabletop or in the cabinets. To get around this, we can use camo sparingly and paint bigger and clearer shapes. We can also try to keep the majority of the brighter shapes where you'd expect highlights, and only break that a little with a much darker contrasting color. Of course, just like anything else, we gotta paint the highlights. Here I make sure that there is still a clear separation between the different shapes when I'm done. I'm really happy with this guy. The pose really works, and this kitbash really shows that you can keep it really simple and it'll still look really good. And that's all 5 of them. I enjoyed making these. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you like what I do, you'd be a hero for liking and subscribing. Thanks to Lexp Games for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out and use my code GSC5 for 5% off. This is Jonas at Garen Spirit Creations, signing off. See ya.